I'm at 303 Hadley Avenue in Dayton, Ohio. We're in Oakwood in Dayton, doing a sanitary lateral inspection for the purchase of a home. We're looking for any structural issues, root intrusion, anything that would be concerning to the buyer. Our access is what you see in front of me here. It's a Y-end stack. I think all the plumbing comes down. If you see how both of these pipes come down, tie into the same stack, go through the floor. Now they do come over and go into, you can see that down in there, there's a little pit here. And if you look down in there, there's a clean out where it comes across in the floor and turns. Now we're hoping we don't have to try to get access to that. Hoping this will make the turns and get all the way through here from here, but just kind of for information for the homeowner. So this is all cast iron coming through here, and I do expect it that once it changes, or once it exits the house, excuse me, that it should change over to clay when it exits the house. So this should come over, and then here's that turn. I just showed you where that connection was. This is where the line turns and exits the house. Trying to get a good angle on this, so it's in a weird spot next to this water filtration unit. So let's see if I can get this to go through there. There we go. And so cast iron, just a few things to note while we're sitting here. Cast iron is, this actually looks like it's in really good shape. It's held shape very well. It's always going to rust. Obviously, it's cast iron, so it's always ugly like this. And some of the things to avoid with this is you never want to put wet wipes down your toilet anyway, even if they say flushable. But it's even more important with cast iron. As you can see how rough the pipe edges are in the interior of the pipe. It tends to catch on these things a lot worse, and they can cause we call soft clogs, or excessive toilet paper, paper towels, women products. They can catch on these rough edges of the pipe, and so it more commonly causes those type of clogs. Now this looks like the line is wide open and the cast iron is in great shape. But just always note those things with the use of cast iron, with the use of anything really, but cast iron is so rough that it just happens. It's a lot more common. And so as you can see, we're getting ready to exit the cast iron, and we're going to go into clay. This is all normal. This is the normal pipe material for a house of this age. And so this does go out the rear. Clay is a pretty good material. It really doesn't have an age limit on it. It's a little more brittle, but it does, it doesn't really degrade over time very much. And for the most part, the biggest thing we see with this is just root intrusion, because if you notice, there's another seam about every 3 feet, and so there's just a lot of opportunity there. Now, I don't know if there's any trees that are even close enough for that. As I say that, we have a little bit of buildup here. Looks like there's a little bit of root intrusion getting in right at that joint. It's pretty minor, and not big enough to really have any kind of major issue with it, but it is something you may want to, if nothing else at this point, you may want to do a chemical treatment on it, which would be like Rudex, something like that, or you could do a jetting, but this is very minor, and so usually something like this you could probably just dump some root killer down it once a year or so, starting before you move in, and that should it would help kind of burn these roots back a little bit, keep them from growing any further. So hopefully we can get out far enough. We can get all the way to the main. the lens nice and clear on the front of the camera, we'll take a look at this on the way back also. But you can see stuff where, like, some of this is calcium deposits, some of it could be the packing in the clay coming through. A little bit of root intrusion there also. So we do have a decent amount of root intrusion there. So I'm hoping, based off the footage, I think I'd be getting fairly close to the main. It's getting a little difficult to push now. I've seen is just some really minor root intrusion that should be able to be taken care of with the chemical. It's really not big enough to try to send a cutter head through. And you might be able to do a jetting just because of the way, the nature of it, but I don't really think it's necessary. Looks like this is, we're dropping into the main here, I believe. Yep, there we are. So that buildup of stuff that you were seeing is actually this. If you look at this, at the main, this has been lined. So you can see the water going by, but this stuff hanging in the way here is what they, this is on the sewer department, but that is where a liner, where they lined it. When they went to go cut it out, it wasn't done very precisely, and so there's a hole poked in it, but that is basically a liner edge that should have been cut out almost surgically with a robot, depending on when they had this put in, I should say, depending on how long this thing has been lined. But they send that robot back through, and it's supposed to cut out the hole there, and it looks like they did, but it just left some hangers on. You can kind of see it. It's really, usually the camera view is a little better than that, so we'll drop it down in that water and see if we can get it to rinse off better, so we can show you a better angle on that. Because it looks good from there, and then you get up to here. So there you go. You can kind of see how it's open. Most of it's just hanging on the left side of that opening. So probably just when they cut it, it didn't come off as good as they expected it to, and kind of hang on a couple small spots. But anyway, it is open, and the line actually looks really good structurally. And as we go back, we'll have to see. You can see that worm up there. That was kind of weird. So as we pull back, though, we'll take a look at these little tiny bit of roots here. Nothing major. I don't think there's any major trees left back there either. And all of this stuff is very, very minor. Like I said, you could start with a treatment. A root treatment. Now the home inspection was done just a little while ago, and so water has been run through all the fixtures. So this is kind of one of the worst ones, and it's still very, very light. You can see just a couple little tiny finger roots. Now if those were let go to grow for years, it would obviously build up and cause a little bit of problems, but it's very little root intrusion. And you can see that there's no water sitting in the pipe, which is always good. If in the bottom left-hand corner, you can see that this line, the angle, it's at a 7 degree pitch. Now, 1 degree is usually minimal, so there's a little tiny bit more, but you can see it, like it's kind of a clump, but you can see what's actually coming through is just a very small amount of roots. And so structurally, the line's looking really good. It's this is probably the worst part here. Starting right here at this spot, 62 feet is probably the worst spot, and you can see how it gets in, and then it just kind of fans out those little tiny finger roots. So as long as you keep them at bay and don't let them grow real thick and get it to the point where it can start breaking the pipe, all this is not a huge deal. But you got about 60 to 63 feet there, is I'd say 60 to 65 feet total, but the seams are at about 60 and 63 feet. And those are, I think, about the worst spots we saw on the way out. Oh, well, as soon as I say that, there's 59. You can just see how little the roots are that are getting in. It just looks like a big ball in there. So you want to get that taken care of before, you know, it can grow real big and wide. And those chemicals, they kind of foam up and then they catch on those roots. So you put it down before you go to bed. It'll catch on those roots and then you know, burn them back, keep them from continuing to grow. But you can see there that most of them getting into the bottom of the pipe, get in at the seams, and then they run down to get into that water. It's obviously fertilizer and water all in one place, so they love it. You can even see this spot right here. It's just so small. As long as you get started now and put that chemical down there, you should be good to go. This is a pretty good amount of roots there just sitting along the bottom. But look at what's getting in and how big that is. It's very small root ball. So you want to, before that all gets together and makes one big root, you want to go ahead and start getting that taken care of so it doesn't create some, you know, big enormous root. And so I would recommend that you do maybe yearly treatments of like Root X, and then go back in about 5 years, do a follow-up inspection, see if the roots are still growing, see if you need to modify the maintenance schedule at all in either direction, and just check the line out. You know, this is about the most common thing you're ever going to see in clay lines. I mean, I'd say 80 to 90% of all the, if you watch any of my other videos, you'll see that about 80 to 90% of all these clay lines that I inspect have some form of root intrusion. They always planted trees in the front yard or in the backyard right over top of the sewer lines, and so once they mature, And then a lot of times the packing around those joints every 3 feet, they start to kind of shrink up a little bit, and just a little bit of entry from those roots, and they lock in and they love it. So very, very, very common. The cast iron on the inside here looks really good. I didn't see anything out of this stuff that cause any concern. It's holding shape really well. A lot of times you'll see some channeling, a lot worse than what we see here. And so I'd say the biggest thing that you need to watch, which you can take a look at, is the fact that you've got that clean out running right through that little crock that's holding water. And so that might hasten the rust process on that line, or that part of the line, but overall the line looks really, really good. So you can see we've made it all the way back, and we're back in the reel. So to sum it up, again, the line looked great structurally. I didn't see any issues as far as the shape of pipe, the connections. They all look good. Obviously you have a few spots of relatively minor root intrusion. They've gotten in, what's getting in is very minor. It's starting to ball up, so you do want to get that, at least treat it with some Root X. I'd say once a year for the next, say, 5 years or so, and then have it re-inspected just to kind of get an idea of what you're looking at for the future, and maybe modify your maintenance schedule if needed. But overall, the line is in really good structural condition. So that's going to end the inspection at 303 Hadley Avenue in Dayton, Ohio, Oakwood.